Hello and welcome to another episode of Battle Ready.
Yay.
And today, I've been thinking about why do we like the armies we like? Because I think there's armies we like more than others.
Oh, yes.
And I thought we'd drill down a little bit. I've given it some thought. I have some answers, but I wanted to pick your brain a little bit. And also out there, let us know in the comments why you like the armies you like. Because I think, if you think about it, I think it really does come down to one thing. But first, Drake, what are your favorite armies?
Iron Jaws.
Iron Jaws?
By Gits.
Gits? Why?
I feel like it's just because they're a bunch of green, fun-loving idiots that mishaps can happen to so easily.
Well, I mean, the mishaps, okay, so those are both good.
For a lore perspective.
So it's both good. But then I guess my question would be, why don't you like Skaven as much? I mean, I know you like them.
Yeah, I do like them.
But why aren't they in the same tier, the same realm as the Gloomspite or Iron Jaws?
I feel like I don't like the Skaven as much because they don't, I guess, cater to my personal play standard.
Okay.
I like...
What's your personal play standard?
Run up, punch things with really good war scrolls. And a couple of tricks.
Okay, all right.
Gloomspite's a little bit different. But that's what I like to do. I just like having big stompy things to run around and punch.
Okay. Do you think the fact that they're green matters at all?
Well, I mean, green's my favorite color, so maybe.
Green's your favorite color. But do you think it matters?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It might just be an aesthetic thing.
Well, let me ask you this. What if we change the lore on Fire Slayers? Fire Slayers are green now.
Oh,
they're green.
Are they still naked baby dwarves? But green?
There's the exact same models, but lore-wise, you now paint them green. The exact same models, and you paint them green, and they're mercenaries. So now they've been co-opted completely into destruction. They have their own version of WoW, and they run up and punch things. Would you want to play Fire Slayers?
No, the models are too gross.
Okay, all right. So
models also definitely matters for me. So the models need to be cool. They need to represent the big stompy things.
So
and not naked little baby dwarves.
I think that ultimately is my answer.
Well,
when I think about the factions that I like, now just like Skaven, right? There's lots of factions that I like and I think are cool.
Skaven, I think, have some of my favorite models on just the gross factor.
For sure.
Like that shouldn't exist.
But if I think about the particular factions that are like the ones that I really like, the ones that really get me going.
What are they?
It'd be Nurgle.
Yep.
And what was the other one that I was thinking about? No, definitely not Stormcast.
Caradron?
I like Caradron. Might be Soulblight. Yeah, I think it's not
not after the game we played.
Well, I mean, the game we played is fun, which is coming up. You'll see it soon.
Oh yay!
But I definitely don't like the play style of Nighthaunt, but I think the models are really good. But what keeps my top tier, which I think is definitely Nurgle, and maybe to a somewhat lesser extent, not like Slanesh, but to a somewhat lesser extent, Soulblight, is the fact that the models are cool. Lore helps, playstyle helps, right? If the models are super cool, but I just hated the way they were on the tabletop. Nighthaunt sort of fits into this, where I think the models really are quite good.
They're so good.
But I strongly dislike the play experience. But for the other ones, I think it really comes down to like 80% are the models cool. And I feel like that's the bottom line. Others, there's 20% that's other stuff, but I think 80% are the models cool. What do you think about that? If I told you only like factions because the models look good, what would you say?
That's fair.
Fair. Okay. All right.
I think it's more 75% for me are the models cool, and then 25 are the other stuff.
Yeah, we could quibble over the percentages, but I would think the majority, even the great majority, are the models cool. Do the models look cool?
And Iron Jaws and Gits, I think they're my favorite for model reasons, because their models have character and movement. Like in the Grots, at least with like the ball and chain Grots, they're whizzing around, they're flying all different directions. The squigs look like an endless tide of bouncing death.
Yes.
The goblins are goblins.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think Gloomspite Gits has fantastic models. In fact, I think most armies, not all, but most armies really do have fantastic models. And so it's mostly about which ones speak to you personally, right? So the Gloomspite Gates is a great example. I can look at those trolls,
For
or
hours.
particularly the squigs, and really appreciate how cool,
They're the
how
best.
dynamic they are, how there's this great element of carnage but silliness, right? Comedy but
Murder.
violence, right? They're really quite good. But ultimately, for me, just as a personal thing, I like them, but they're not gonna they don't excite me the way that others might. Whereas for you, they do hit that sweet spot.
Yeah.
Right? And the same thing with the Iron Jaws. I like a lot of the models. I don't think any of them are bad. And then for me, it's, if we touch on Nurgle, I love the Nurgle models. The grosser, the better. I'm sort of looking forward to, I hope, even though I have way too many of the stupid plague bearers, I sort of hope they get new ones, because I would love to. I think those are the
Buy
weakest
another
models.
50?
No, but those are, I think, the weakest models in the range. Whereas Blight Kings, I think, look amazing.
Oh yeah.
The Blight Lords, the Puscoils, are super
Also, from
good.
a hobby perspective, all of Iron Jaws, Gits, and Nurgle are super kit bashable. Because Iron Jaws, you can slap anything on, and Gits, you can slap anything on and say, "Oh yeah, they stole that."
Oh yeah, I mean.
And then for Nurgle, you can make anything.
Well, I think that just depends on the story you want to tell. It might be easier to tell stories with certain armies.
Yeah.
But you could slap anything on anything, as long as you had a good story to go along with it. But I do think that because the models are so cool, to me, when it comes to Nurgle, I definitely want to play that army a lot. It's getting Nurgle out, being like, oh, I'm spreading my disease. The models really help tell the story. And I feel like, does that mean, if that's the case, that the majority of liking an army is that it's the models? Does that mean we're just playing with toys?
Yes.
Are we just playing with toys? Is that what we're
playing
doing
with
here?
toys with awesome rules
I think
that
we're
do
playing with
awesome
toys.
things.
I think we're playing with toys. I think,
very brittle toys that you can't mess around with.
In some sense, I think it's pretty common that men and boys never really get over playing with toys. The toys just change.
Yeah.
Right? Whether your toys turn into gadgets and electronics, or video games, or cars. Maybe you're a guy that likes to work on cars.
Or models.
Or Warhammer models. I think
arguably the best toy.
clearly
yeah,
the best.
Clearly the best.
But I do think that at some point, anything you do really comes down to playing with toys. And I think in Warhammer, in particular, or at least in Age of Sigmar, it's about what toys are going to get you hyped. Because let's face it, playing the game, the game asks a lot from you. You could go play Space Marine 2, which is really fun and cool.
It's so fun.
And all the math, all the hits and misses and damage and what happens is done by the computer.
Yeah.
You don't have to do any of that.
You just have to go have fun.
It's not going to forget any rules either. If you put a buff on yourself or a debuff on the enemy, it's not going to forget, right? Whereas on the tabletop, sometimes we forget, right? And so I feel like playing a tabletop war game definitely requires a little bit more investment in the game, in the rules, and certainly in the modeling aspect, right? Because unlike a normal game, the board game, you go and you buy, and it's got all the pieces ready to go. All you get is a sprue, right? In Warhammer, and you are expected to cut it out, glue it together,
don't break it,
paint it up, find out how to want it, right? And so there's a lot more investment in order to play this game. If you play in Space Marine 2 or in any video game, right?
I mean,
and you want to change, you play in Fortnite, and you want to change what your character looks like.
Just press a couple buttons.
You press a couple buttons, you change your skin, everything's great. It's like, okay, right? Whereas if I want to change what my army looks like, it's a lengthy painting process, right?
I would just say don't. Just pick a color that you like.
So
that's it.
Because of that, I think what's going to keep people coming back, or at least what keeps us coming back, is the fact
that you get to see people.
That we get to play with these cool little toys.
Oh, that too.
Yeah. And now there are other benefits, right? Playing in person, couch co-op is like they like to call it now. This is way better experience to be in the room with friends. Lore is great. The narrative on the tabletop is awesome. Is your flies come up against their scream of Wa, and the flies just die from the the Wa power, right? So stuff like that is super cool.
That's when I cheated.
Yeah. Stuff like that is super cool and very fun and does contribute. But ultimately, I do sort of think it's about the toys. Games Workshop will often say that they're a modeling company, not a game company. What do you think of that?
Yes.
You think that's true?
I think that they're a modeling company that also happens to make really fun rules for said models.
Well, that's the thing. Clearly, the reason they make the rules is so that people will buy the models, right? Because why are you doubling up on model kits? It's because you want reinforced units, right?
Mm.
You're not buying the same model kit multiple times because
you want a new one.
You want to build them slightly different and paint them very similarly. No, you're buying multiples for the game. So the game really is sort of a marketing tool, although a marketing tool that they charge you a bunch of money for to get the rules.
Woohoo!
Stop. No, not woohoo.
For them, woohoo.
Not for them, woohoo. For us, not woohoo. But I do think there is something to that. I do think that in a lot of ways, maybe not every way, right? I think sometimes there's these rumors that, the sculptors put out a model and then it's up to the rules team to figure something to do with it, right? I don't know that it's always like that.
No.
But I do think that when Games Workshop looks at how they are, looks at their business, what they're looking at is how can we make these models in such a way? What can we do to get people to buy models, right? Yes, they get revenue streams from Black Library. Yes, they get revenue streams from Battle Tomes and whatnot. But I think
it's mainly from the cool toys.
The way they look at it is
what cool toy
toys
can we make better?
And for that reason, when you're looking at an army, and especially what if you're looking at getting into Age of Sigmar and you think, oh, I want to get into this game. This game looks so awesome. And it is. That look is correct. What army should I choose?
Iron Jaws.
Right. Honestly, with rare exception, I would tell the person, get into the army that has the coolest to you toys, right? If Ossiarch Bone Reapers really gets you going, you're like, oh, these Bone Reapers are crazy cool.
Fat Skeletons of Doom.
Great. If the Skaven are your jam, you're like, I love these rat men. Great. Because the rules and even the play style is going to change over time, right? Rules definitely change. And the play style changes too. Sometimes, and I think Night Haunt is a great example of this. It's on my mind right now because we just played it recently, which you'll see it coming up. But the old Night Haunt, especially in 2nd edition, you would just crowd your guys around your buffs, and you'd have this Death Star. Sort of went around the table.
It was the best.
And then they got away from that a little bit in 3rd, but it was still, you needed your buff pieces, right? Yeah. Your guys were weak, and then your buff pieces brought them up to being very good. And now in 4th edition,
what's it like?
The buff piece, you still want to have buffs. Buffs are good. And your heroes do tend to put them out there for you. But they're not nearly as necessary, and they're not nearly as required. I think most of the heroes, a lot of the heroes do give a buff, and you do want that. Right? I'm not saying everything's an independent operator, but you'll see more independent operation in Night Haunt now, where maybe you have 2 or 3 units and a hero, rather than one mega Death Star, because everything needs to crowd around these same 3 heroes. So there you go.
So Guardian of Souls and Spirit Torment, and then you surround it with 2 20-packs of Wisps.
There you go. That's a way to do it.
It was so powerful.
Whereas now you've got your Spirit Torment and then these guys. And then over here you've got your Guardian of Souls and then these guys. And over here you've got this guy and then these guys. So you spread out things a little bit more. And so maybe you liked the Death Star. Maybe you got into Night Haunt because you wanted a Death Star army. I'm just going to create the megalopolis, the grand necropolis of death, and just march around the board.
3rd edition. No.
Well, yeah. Well, now especially, I don't know. I guess you can play any way you want, right? So if you like that, you can still play it. But it doesn't seem to me to be optimal, especially with the battle plans for this season. I just don't think that a Death Star is really the best way to go most of the time. So those things will change, right? And if you like the models, if you like the story, if you like the lore, the playstyle change is usually not that big a deal. It's like, okay, well, I'll play a little bit more like this. And of course, unless something crazy changes, you can always still do it.
Yeah.
Right? You could just make it. Maybe it's not going to be as powerful. Maybe it's going to be a little bit.
It's a Star Destroyer.
Yeah. Well, what I mean is maybe you're not going to win as many games, but you can still play the way that you want.
Yeah.
And I think what it really comes down to is the toys. Right?
Toys.
If you like the models, if you want to get into an army, if you want to get into this game and you're thinking, oh, what's the most powerful? What's the best army? That's really not the way to look at it, because the best army today, first of all, it's not poorly balanced right now. It's not like there's an outlier army that's killing everybody, mostly. But I do think that if you get into today's best army, they're going to get hit with the Nerf bat. There's going to be an FAQ or a battle scroll. They're going to get a new battle tome, and suddenly they're middle of the pack, maybe even low. Oh. Maybe you got into it thinking, oh man, Cruel Boys are going to be so awesome. And then by the end of the edition, they were in a rough spot. They were not doing super well. And so I feel like you need to pick toys that are just fun to play with, whether you're killing people or getting killed. You're just like, yeah, you know what? Mork says no.
Mork says no.
Mork says no. It doesn't matter that I'm going to lose this game. Before I lose, Mork will say no.
To me.
That's right. So definitely, I think that a large percentage, whether it's 75, whether it's 80, something like that, is the toys. Any other thoughts?
I think we got it all.
All right, let us know in the comments below. I'm really interested to see, are we an outlier? Everybody else doesn't care about the models and they just want the lore or the playstyle or whatever else. What would you say is your number one contributing factor to the armies that you love? Is it their lore? Is it their play style? Is it the fact that your buddy hates them and so you bring them out of spite and that fills you with joy? Right? Tell us in the comments, what is it about the armies that you play or the armies that you most like that brings you back to those armies or got you to start it in the first place? This has been another episode of Battle Ready. Thanks so much for watching.